because of his asthmatic condition, he needed extra care, of course. And my mother gave it all to him. She also felt very sorry for him. He was only 6 years old. His mother died at the age of 4. And somehow her heart went out to him. Now, I don't know whether she has a heart, that she has any real feelings for children, or whether it was Maurice's son, and so she automatically would try harder. It's very difficult to say at this point. It's just difficult to say. All I know is that many, many nights he had to spend the night in their bedroom in case an attack would come up. This way she would be right with him. And there's one particular incident that I will never forget. The timing of it is not important, whether it was 2 months, 4 months, a year later, it doesn't matter. But because of his condition, he apparently had to be on a certain diet of some kind. Because one day she had gone shopping and she came home with beautiful big green grapes. And as she was unpacking all her shopping, the grapes she had taken out, and I casually went over and took out one grape and to eat. And she said, "Don't touch that. The grapes are right now out of the season. They're very expensive, and they're for Willie because of his special diet and his condition." It was as if this happened yesterday. She tore my heart out when she said that. Sure, I was 12, maybe I was 13 by then already, and maybe I should have understood at that age, but I simply didn't. It hurt so, it was indescribable. I remember yelling at her and screaming and saying how unfair it was, and that I was second class, that I didn't matter, that everything was centered around Willie and his asthma. And she completely ignored me. She thought she was right, and she had no understanding at all about my feelings, none whatsoever. No idea how to handle me, how to pacify me, how to make me feel wanted and needed and part of it. It just seemed that all she had to give was to Willie and to Maurice, and I don't know, it was horrible, just horrible. I never could forgive her for that, and for many other things for that matter. But that was just incredible. It was just too much. I just hated her so wholeheartedly. And Willie, of course, I hated him also. The particular time of the grapes is kind of vague. It was fairly at the beginning of her remarriage, but I can't pinpoint exactly. So I just would like to go back a little to the beginning of when she had remarried and us living together, and my relationship with Maurice was such that for a whole year I hardly spoke to him. I ignored him. I ignored the kid. I was so into myself. I was so unhappy. And during that whole year, Maurice, at no time did he give up on me. The more he realized my feelings of loneliness and of being so unhappy and realizing what she was doing to me. And I'm sure that many, many times he must have talked to her about it, that she should watch it, she shouldn't show so much attention to Willie, even though he has asthma, that she should show some affection and some love for me, that she has enough of a heart to give to all and not just to him or to his child. And anyway, I'm sure that there were discussions like that between them. But that whole year where I was very into myself and very unhappy, he never stopped being kind, considerate, helpful in every way. He tried so hard, and it just goes, it's amazing that I didn't break, that I didn't realize it sooner, that I had someone there who was my ally, who was good to me and kind to me. It was so hard to accept him that I couldn't, I can't explain it too well. I know it took a hell of a long time, almost a year. I wouldn't call him anything. If I would have to speak to him at all, I'd just start off talking, but I couldn't call him by his name. I just couldn't communicate at all with him. I was so jealous of this whole situation, him and the kid, and nothing would penetrate. And she, of course, it would drive her crazy of my behavior. My behavior drove her crazy. She would take me aside and she'd say, look how good he is to you. Look how kind he is. No matter how abrupt and impolite and reluctant I am to talk to him, look how persistent he is and how hard he's trying. Why don't I give in a little? And this went on and on for a whole year. She telling me to be nice to him, and him just being nice and kind as he always was, and nobody seemed to be able to reach me. I just couldn't cooperate. Around the same time, another problem had come up. The problem was that those years I spent in France going to school, I didn't really learn much, and I was way behind in school, way behind, at least 2 years. I mentioned quite a while ago that Monsieur and Madame Pierrot were wonderful to me. They really were kind and everything, but never did they tell me to study or did I do my homework, or they just left me alone, and I had a good time playing constantly. And of course my education was, there was a lot to be desired. So when I went to school in Brussels, of course it showed up how much I had to catch up. And Maurice, being the only intelligent, educated man in the house, would many times ask me if I could help me, that he would tutor me, that if I give 6 months, if I let him help me for 6 months, I'll catch up the year and a half I had missed out. And I fought him on that also. I wouldn't accept his help. And then he would try to explain how important education was, and he could help. And I refused. The same way I refused his help in tutoring me, I refused everything. His kindness, his tactfulness, his everything. That very first year, I absolutely I couldn't stand him. So the situation was very difficult that whole year. It was impossible almost. It was one problem with another. My jealousy with that damn kid who had the asthma, my resentment of her marrying him, Maurice, and of course my hurt and my pain of her neglect of me and not showing enough love. It was a miserable year. Obviously, eventually, about a year later, I finally realized that the only person in that whole house who's really kind and good to me is Maurice. And I finally accepted his love, his kindness, his trying to help me. I was completely open then, since there was no one else to turn to. And he started to tutor me very strongly. It was every night, at least 2 hours, and it was French, history, math. Oh, math, I was so awful in that. Daddy put in a lot of hours with me. And besides helping me with my schoolwork, he also took me to museums. I should appreciate some art. He also made me read books that he recommended highly. And at the age of 13, I remember this very clearly, he gave me to read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. And I loved that book. I absolutely adored it. It was a fantastic book. In fact, I read it twice more in my lifetime, and it's one of my very favorites. And after that, I had to read the rest of Dostoevsky's work. He said, once you like an author, read the rest of the books that that same author wrote, so that you really get acquainted with the author. And besides suggesting books to me and making sure I read them and enjoyed them, then he would go to another author. And then he would also, he tried to teach me the violin, but that was a lost cause. Anyway, as much time as my mother spent with Willie and his asthmatic attacks, that's how much time as Maurice spent with me, helping me with my schoolwork, educating me from scratch, advising me on what to read, taking me to museums, and I very gradually and slowly became very, very happy of all the attention I was getting from him. He doubly tried hard, since he could see that as far as my mother was concerned, she was so not tactful. And one thing about Maurice is his, well, at that period, I'm talking about that period only, his understanding of human beings and of loneliness and of jealousy and all what makes people tick, his understanding was tremendous. He was an intellectual in all the sense of the word, extremely educated from all aspects, and it was, I would say, Pygmalion, by sure. This is what happened. From a little innocent, playful little girl, little tomboy, whatever the hell I was, he gradually molded me in every way of life, and his influence was so tremendous. His influence has lasted until at the age of 36, when I finally got it out of my system. But till today, let me put it this way, and then I'll go back again, I have this urge of always learning more, finding out more, curiosity about things, and it's all due to him. There's absolutely no question. No one has had an influence on my whole life, in every aspect of my whole life, as Maurice did, because what inevitably happened was that whatever I had left over in my heart, whatever feelings that were left over there, they were completely given to him. He had my admiration, my love, my appreciation, my consideration. If he would have told me, and at that time I was about 13 and a half or so, to jump in the lake, I would have. I didn't get it. I didn't get anything from my mother. My father, sure, he visited once a week. He took me out. And this is another story in a way, because I'll have to talk about this now, about my father. That period of this 1 year and a half or so, he used to be a very, very Orthodox Jew. And because of the war, what the war did to him in the concentration camp, he became 100% Gentile. Most of the time, when it was his day to visit me and we'd go out together, he always had a Gentile girlfriend with him, either blonde, redhead, brunette. Even he couldn't give me all of his time. That one day, once a week on Sunday. 80% of the time he had to bring one of his girlfriends. And he wasn't kosher, of course. He just didn't care. It was a reaction, of course, from the concentration camp. So that much from him I didn't get either, because I resented, needless to say, the fact that the one day we got to spend with him, he had to schlep one of his girlfriends to the movies, to the ice cream parlor, to the restaurant. And once in a while it was just him and I, and of course those days I was thrilled. I was so happy. But it was so seldom. So really the only person who gave all of himself to me was Maurice. And of course I returned it. He was the only human being I saw that really cared for me and liked me. And it was quite natural on my part to respond to his kindness. So that it became a very vicious circle. They both catered a lot to Willie. I mean, the kid was sick, there's no question about that and all. But as much as he cared for his son, and my mother, of course, and he understood so well the hell I went through by her remarrying and by having his son who's sick, and he just had such understanding of my feelings. It's unbelievable. Well, it's going to get much harder to talk about all this now, but from my father I didn't get much. From my mother I got a big 0. Willie, of course, was him I was constantly jealous of. So the only human being really was Maurice. Also at that period my uncle and aunt and my 2 cousins had survived the war, and they lived in Antwerp, and very seldom did I have a chance to see them, so it's not like I could run over to them and get some affection or attention or love from them. It's only 1 hour away, but it's still with the train, and it was difficult. So I depended completely on Maurice's love, affection, attention, etc., etc.